OK, so much to come your way, though, this morning. Let's start, then, with that immense battle between Manchester United and Liverpool this afternoon as the two Dutch managers, Erik ten Hag and Arne Slot, go head-to-head in the Premier League for the very first time. We can head live now to Old Trafford and speak to our senior reporter, Melissa Reddy, who's there waiting to talk to us. Good to see you, Melissa, as always. You spoke, didn't you, to Erik ten Hag on Friday as, of course, the deadline day mayhem was continuing around us all. How was he feeling ahead of the game, do you feel?
Yeah, with all the targeted priority positions boxed in the transfer window, Erik ten Hag wants to walk out of the dugout here at Old Trafford and feel the Manchester United fans bring the fire, as he put it. Now, when I spoke to him on Friday, he was very keen to circle two major points. The first is that even though Liverpool have a new head coach in Arne Slot and a new backroom team, they are in a different life cycle to his Manchester United side because the players, they're the same. They've been together for a while, they've developed, they've matured, they're in sync, and the differences in style are only very slight from what they were used to under Jurgen Klopp. And secondly, he wanted to really stress that even though United had a hideously difficult season last time out, they were actually unbeaten against Liverpool, drawing home and away in the league, and then obviously knocking them out in the FA Cup in that 4-3 epic that happened here with an absolutely feverish atmosphere that he wants to see recreated. Now, Old Trafford really is where the wheels came off for Liverpool's title ambitions and the thoughts of securing more silverware to give Jurgen Klopp that perfect send-off. And actually, in the main, it has been a notoriously difficult ground for them.
Yeah, Liverpool fans won't thank you for reminding them of that this morning. But let's talk about it then, because, of course, Arne Slot is now in charge. And you've spoken to him as well, haven't you, this week? What have you noticed in terms of changes from the Klopp era to the Slot era?
I think Liverpool are definitely more controlled and measured under Slot. They're comfortable in possession and killing games rather than trying to force it. They're a lot more defensively secure and solid, and they're not just constantly in this mode of press, counter-attack. They're learning to be a lot more patient and calm. And very, very importantly, Liverpool's performances against the counter-attack, that has significantly improved. Now, Slot did tell me in that exclusive interview that I did with him that the true test would come against United here at Old Trafford because of their strength on the break. However, it's very noticeable that they're taking less risks with the high press. They're allowing the opposition less turnovers. And then if the press is beaten, that is where you see the energy exerted with recovery runs, especially from the midfielders. And I think that's why Ryan Gravenberch has been preferred as the number 6 because of the dynamism he offers there.
Yeah, it makes sense, doesn't it? Thank you ever so much, Melissa. Just a reminder, kick-off at Old Trafford is at a slightly earlier time than usual, at 4 p.m. live on Sky Sports Premier League. Charlotte, look, I'm really intrigued to talk about Erik ten Hag because he talks about this kind of maturity that he talks about a lot. And he said that Arne Slot has inherited a more mature squad than he has. Do you agree with those comments?
I suppose it depends what he categorises mature, because if you look at the average age of the starting 11 over like the last 2 seasons, it's actually pretty similar.
Right.
So it's not like he's inherited a team of 16-year-olds who've never played in the Premier League before. I think maybe the problem Manchester United have had, especially over the last few years, even before Erik ten Hag, is they seem to have lacked leaders. They seem to have lacked people who, in situations where maybe they're 2-1 up and they need to see a game out, someone who's savvy enough to read the situation, tell the team to calm down, get them through those vital last few minutes. Whereas we know that Liverpool have been very good at that over the past few years. So I don't think maturity can be viewed in many different ways, can't it? In terms of, you look at someone who's younger than someone else can be more mature. So the age dynamic between the two teams isn't that different. But I just think that experience and nous of knowing how to manage games and who do they look to within that team to drag them through those situations. I think Liverpool do have more of those players, but then is that sort of on the manager to have a lead? Manchester City, for example, have a leadership group, don't they? They don't just have a captain to do that. Is it on him to pull people aside and be like, I need you as my people on the pitch to be able to manage these situations? So he does have to take some responsibility for that himself as well, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know England had the same, didn't they, with Jude Bellingham, who's super young, but part of the leadership group. So that's a really good point. Look, Erik ten Hag was backed in the window, wasn't he? I mean, Melissa touched on it there. They prioritised positions and they got them. Manuel Ugarte coming in on deadline day as well. Not registered, of course, for this game today. A very different window, you'd have to say, in terms of what we've witnessed before going on at Old Trafford. Is that what you saw? This is a new dynamic going on here.
Yeah, oh yeah, they're backing him big time because he's their man. Everyone expected him to leave at the end of last season, and that didn't happen. So if you're going to keep him, given all that uncertainty, then you have to back him, and that's what they've done. Just looking through some of the signings, Joshua Zirkzee, Lenny Oro, very, very talented young defender, unfortunate to be out injured at the moment. Matthijs de Ligt, Nusayr Mazraoui, comes from Bayern Munich, and of course Manuel Ugarte. We'll talk about him later on the show. He's a terrific defensive midfielder who should solve a problem in that area. How they would love to have him today against Liverpool. But as far as the backing from the club is concerned, he's had that and some, because you look at the average price of the players that he's brought in, around about £50 million.
Yeah, I think from the outside looking in, they've had a very, very successful window.
Yeah, and I think obviously it's the first window with the new structure in place behind. Obviously you've got Barada, Ashworth, Wilcox. These are all people that Jim Ratcliffe and his team have brought in because they've looked at what Manchester United have done in the past in terms of transfers, looked at where they think they've maybe gone wrong, which I'm sure we'll get onto with a couple of names later in terms of Jadon Sancho, who's now left, and how they can improve on that. And I think they think it's been quite an efficient window. They think they've boxed off the positions where they wanted to strengthen. They've waited in terms of Ugarte. They feel like they got a good deal for him. Bayern wanted 60 million. They said they held strong, they held their nerve, they stood strong, they waited. It took them a long time to get that deal over the line in the end. The deadline date was announced. They feel that by doing that, they got a better deal. They paid 50 million up front, I think it was, potential with 10 in add-ons. So I think we are starting to see this new era in terms of it is their first window altogether, and they do seem to be quite happy with it. So I think it was interesting how much money they spent, because if you spoke to people in and around the club before, this whole PSR thing, they were saying the margins were quite tight.
Yeah.
I know obviously amortisation of the contract, they can spread the fee over the length of the deal. I think they've all got like 5-year deals here, which is the maximum you can do it over. Does bring the fee down, but I don't think anyone was really expecting them to go and spend close to 200 million, which is what they have spent this window. But now really it does leave Ten Hag with no excuses, doesn't it? Because last season there was all the injuries and how are they going to progress, but they've shown that they back him, they believe he's the right man to do it. These are the types of profile of player he thinks have been lacking within the squad. They've paid the money to get the players he wants, so now it's over to him to show that they've got what it takes.
Just very quickly, Charlotte, the one thing that does strike me about the squad is that if you look at every area on the pitch, they have brought in players to improve the side. But it looks like no country for young English players. They've either been shipped out in the case of Scott McTominay, or their forms really dipped. Marcus Rashford and Harry Maguire as well. What's the future if you're an English player at Manchester United, a club that has for so long brought through players from their academy into the first team? Well,
I think the jokes were obviously that if a player's Dutch, then Erik ten Hag's going to go for him. But there are players there that he's worked with before. He knows their quality. He knows how he can adapt to them. But you're right in terms of the English thing. But I think that's possibly, not obviously with Maguire because he's still there, it's a problem with the model. If you look at Scott McTominay, the reason why he went is for PSR. He was told by Erik ten Hag.
Straight profit.
Yeah, he was told by Erik ten Hag that he wouldn't get the starting minutes that he wanted. So that was a conversation between the two of them. Reluctantly, Erik ten Hag has let him go. But that is because of the profit and sustainability rules, because he's been there since he was 5 years old. I don't know if you saw the video that they put out of him, but it showed how highly thought of he was in the squad. I know that people would take the mick because he wasn't the most technically gifted player if you look across people in his position across the Premier League, but what he brought to that Manchester United team and squad was invaluable, really, especially when you talk about lack of leaders, or you talk about Manchester United lacking people who seem to care about the club or the badge or anything like that. He was that player who every time he went on the pitch, the fans knew what they were going to get from him. He was going to put a shift in. He scored some really important goals for Manchester United last season. So I do think it was a reluctant sale.
Even Erik ten Hag said on Friday, actually, in his press conference, that he was sorry to see McTominay go. And he obviously got the hero's welcome at Napoli. But I have to say, in Manchester United's defence, it's not just Manchester United that are doing this in terms of their academy players. If I were a young English, British player that was coming into the Premier League, you know, in a club, you know, and you're sort of 15, 16 and you're coming through the ranks in an academy, you'd feel very nervous about whether you were going to be shipped off somewhere else, because that's the way that we're going in terms of PSR. And it could be that that's why you see this happening at Chelsea, Liverpool. There's plenty of clubs during this window that have quietly gone about their business of saying goodbye to their young players.
But on the other side of that, that it incentivises clubs to start buying up the young talent as well, which isn't good either. To stockpile them, to think, well, you could be our biggest asset in 3 to 4 years' time, to then sell them on for a big profit, to then generate the funds to bring in players from overseas. So I think as a model, maybe it is something that needs to be looked at.
Yeah, I think it will be looked at, actually. What are the papers saying ahead of this huge clash today?
Well, as you would expect, acres and acres of Manchester United and Liverpool content across the papers and on digital as well. But I want to take you to this on the back page of the Express. It is United 2, Liverpool 1. They're not predicting the scoreline for today. Look at it at the screen there. They are saying that Ten Hag has been talking ahead of the game this afternoon, and he's been saying that they've been more successful during his reign than Liverpool have been because of the trophies that they've won, which raises the question, what do you savour most if you're a fan of both clubs? Progress, in the case of Liverpool, undoubtedly so, under Jurgen Klopp, and now obviously Arne Slot taking over a club that competes at the top end of the Premier League and in Europe and brings through young players in stark contrast to what's going on at Old Trafford, or trophies, which is what the game is all about, and which Erik ten Hag has defied the odds to deliver at Old Trafford. Sir Alex, of course, would say that the league is the best indicator of a team's or club's progress, and United were always at the top under him. Liverpool are there now. Ten Hag saying, actually, no, at the moment, it's us. Look at us. I want to show you this from the Observer as well. Fairly straightforward, this one. Andy Robertson, left back at Liverpool, talking about the fact that the defence has to be better if Liverpool want to compete for the title this season. He talks about last season when the club conceded 41 goals on the way to finishing third. That was 7 more than the champions Manchester City and 12 more than the runners-up Arsenal. But so far this season, 2 goals, 2 matches, 2 wins, and no goals conceded. They'll have to keep that up against Manchester United today and beyond.